John Wick continues his relentless quest for freedom as he takes his fight directly to the high table. He travels across the globe, from New York to Osaka, Berlin, and Paris, facing off against the powerful Marquis de Gramont. With a massive bounty on his head and old friends turned enemies, John must navigate a world of shifting alliances and brutal combat to finally earn his peace.
But I can shoot him. Motherfucker.
I've got on.
Yeah.
Hey guys, today we are diving deep into the adrenaline-fueled world of a man who just wanted a quiet life but ended up dismantling a global criminal empire instead. We are talking about the masterpiece of kinetic action that is John Wick Chapter 4. This movie is a sprawling, neon-soaked odyssey that pushes the boundaries of what we thought was possible in a fight film. If you had a good time with this, a like and a subscribe is a free way to help me keep making more. We start our journey in the middle of the desert, where the sun is beating down on the sand and the sound of thundering hooves echoes across the dunes. John is on horseback, looking like a modern cowboy with a much higher body count, chasing down the elder, who is the man supposedly above the high table. The wind whistles past his ears, and the heat is almost palpable as he gallops closer to his target. John has been training in the shadows, punching a wooden post until his knuckles are raw and bloody, and now he is ready to strike at the very heart of the organization that took everything from him. He catches up to the elder, and the confrontation is short but meaningful. The elder tells him that there is no way out, and that the only thing he will find at the end of this road is death. John, being the man of few words that he is, simply decides that if the man at the top cannot help him, then the man at the top does not need to exist anymore. The crack of the gun echoes across the vast empty space, and just like that, the power structure of the underworld starts to tremble. Meanwhile, back in New York City, the consequences of John's actions are starting to ripple through the world. Winston is standing in his beloved Continental Hotel, looking out over the city he thought he controlled. But the high table is not happy. A new player has entered the game, a man named the Marquis de Gramont, who has been given total authority to deal with the John Wick problem. The Marquis is young, arrogant, and incredibly wealthy, and he decides to make an example out of Winston. We see the arrival of the adjudicator's representative and the Marquis's personal henchman, Chidi, who carries himself with the quiet menace of someone who enjoys his job way too much. The Marquis strips Winston of his title, declares the New York Continental deconsecrated, and gives everyone an hour to leave. The sound of the countdown clock is like a heartbeat, steady and ominous. Then comes the real tragedy. To prove his point, the Marquis orders the execution of Sharon, the loyal concierge and John's friend. The silence in the lobby after the gunshot is deafening. It is a moment of pure, raw grief that sets the stakes for the rest of the movie. Winston is left with nothing but his wits and a burning desire for revenge, while the Marquis starts blowing up the hotel just to show that he can. The rumble of the explosions and the sight of the iconic building crumbling into dust marks the end of an era.
The action then shifts to the neon-drenched streets of Osaka, Japan. This is where we meet Shimazu Koji, the manager of the Osaka Continental and an old friend of John. The atmosphere here is completely different, filled with traditional Japanese aesthetics mixed with high-tech security. The sound of rain hitting the pavement and the hum of the city provide a rhythmic backdrop to the tension. John arrives seeking sanctuary, and Shimazu, being a man of honor, grants it, despite the massive risk. We also meet Akira, Shimazu's daughter and the concierge, who is much more skeptical of the trouble John brings. She knows that the high table is coming, and she is right. The Marquis sends a blind assassin named Caine, who is another old friend of John, to take him out. Caine is one of the most interesting characters in the film because he is a man torn between his loyalty to his friend and his need to protect his daughter. The sound design during Caine's scenes is incredible. We hear the tiny pings of his motion sensors and the tapping of his cane, which he uses to navigate the battlefield with terrifying precision. The siege of the Osaka Continental is a masterclass in action filmmaking. It starts with the high table's armored soldiers, led by Chidi, storming the hotel. The clatter of their heavy boots on the polished floors and the metallic click of their weapons being readied create a sense of impending doom. The fight breaks out in the museum section of the hotel, and it is a symphony of violence. We see arrows whistling through the air, clanging against glass cases and thudding into bodies. John is using everything at his disposal, from pistols to nunchucks. The sound of the nunchucks hitting the armored helmets is like a fast-paced drum solo, a series of hollow metallic thuds that punctuate the chaos. John is moving with a fluid, lethal grace, weaving through the displays of ancient armor while dodging high-caliber rounds. The sparks fly as bullets hit the metal displays, and the room is filled with the smell of gunpowder and the ozone of the high-tech lights.
As the fight moves into the kitchen and then into the outdoor gardens, the scale of the battle grows. Shimazu and his men are fighting with swords and bows, defending their home against a wave of modern firepower. The clash of steel on steel is sharp and ringing, a stark contrast to the heavy booms of the shotguns. We see Akira moving like a shadow, using her agility and blades to take down soldiers twice her size. Then we get the long-awaited confrontation between John and Caine. Even though Caine is blind, he is a match for John. They fight in a room filled with motion sensors that beep whenever someone moves, adding a layer of sonic tension to the duel. Every time a sensor goes off, a flurry of strikes follows. The sound of their breathing is heavy and ragged as they trade blows. It is a battle of masters who know each other's moves, a tragic dance between two men who would rather be having a drink than trying to kill each other. Outside in the garden, under the blooming cherry blossoms, the atmosphere is strangely peaceful despite the carnage. Shimazu faces off against Caine in a traditional sword duel. The sound of the wind through the trees and the soft rustle of the leaves are interrupted by the sudden sharp hiss of blades cutting through the air. It is a slow, methodical fight compared to the frantic gunplay inside. Every movement is calculated. Unfortunately, Caine's skill is too great and Shimazu falls. Akira watches in horror, a moment of silence hanging in the air before she has to flee. This sequence in Osaka is a perfect example of the movie's action-first philosophy, prioritizing the rhythm and the visual impact of every strike. While all this is happening, we are introduced to another player, a man who calls himself Mr. Nobody, or the Tracker. He is a freelance assassin who travels with a very well-trained and very lethal dog. He is waiting for the bounty on John's head to reach a high enough number before he makes his move. The Tracker is a pragmatic man, checking his notebook and calculating his profit while the world burns around him. The sound of his dog growling and the click of his rifle are constant reminders that John is being watched from every angle. The Tracker's presence adds a layer of unpredictability to the story. He is not loyal to the high table or to John. He is loyal to the paycheck.
John manages to escape Osaka and returns to New York, where he meets Winston in the ruins of the Continental. Winston has a plan. He tells John about an old rule of the high table that allows a member of a great house to challenge another member to a single combat duel for their freedom. If John can win a duel against the Marquis, he will be free, and Winston will have his hotel back. The only problem is that John is no longer part of a house since he was excommunicated. To get back in, he has to go to Berlin and reunite with the Ruska Roma, the criminal family that raised him. This takes us to the next massive set piece of the film. Berlin is dark, industrial, and heavy. The sound of the city is a low-frequency hum of machinery and club music. John meets with his adopted sister, Katya, who is not exactly happy to see him. To earn his way back into the family, John has to kill a man named Killa Harkin, a high-ranking member of the table who killed Katya's father. Killa is a mountain of a man, an eccentric and dangerous character who loves high-stakes gambling and fine suits. The scene where John, Caine, and the Tracker all end up at a card table with Killa is one of the most tense moments in the movie. The sound of the cards shuffling and the chips clinking is the only thing breaking the silence as they play a game for John's life. Killa is laughing, mocking them, but you can feel the violence bubbling just beneath the surface. When the fight finally breaks out in Killa's massive nightclub, it is sensory overload. The bass from the techno music is so loud you can feel it in your chest, and the strobe lights create a disjointed, frantic visual style. The club is filled with hundreds of people dancing, completely oblivious to the gunfight happening right next to them. This creates an incredible atmosphere where John is weaving through the crowd, taking out guards while the beat drops. The sound of the gunshots is muffled by the music, making the violence feel surreal and dreamlike. John chases Killa through the club, and the fight becomes a brutal slugfest. Killa is surprisingly fast for his size, and he uses his weight to toss John around like a rag doll. The sound of John hitting the floor and the metallic clang of the railings as they fall through the levels of the club is punishing. Eventually, John gets the upper hand and finishes the job, taking Killa's gold tooth as proof of the kill. He returns to the Ruska Roma and is branded again, officially back in the family and ready to challenge the Marquis.
The Marquis accepts the challenge but chooses Caine to represent him in the duel. The terms are set, the location is Paris at sunrise, and the stakes are life or death. But the Marquis has no intention of making it easy for John to get to the meeting. He puts a massive bounty on John's head and announces that if John is not at the Sacré-Cœur by sunrise, he will be executed and Winston will be killed as well. This kicks off the final hour-long gauntlet through the streets of Paris. The sound of a French radio DJ announcing John's location to all the assassins in the city is a brilliant touch, turning the entire city into a hunting ground. The Paris sequence is where the movie truly goes over the top in the best way possible. It starts with a car chase around the Arc de Triomphe. Imagine dozens of cars speeding around the massive roundabout while John is on a motorcycle, weaving in and out of traffic. The screeching of tires, the roar of engines, and the constant crunch of metal on metal create a chaotic soundscape. John is knocked off his bike and ends up on foot, dodging cars that are traveling at high speeds while also trading gunfire with assassins. People are being hit by cars, flying through the air and landing with sickening thuds, only for the traffic to keep moving. It is a level of controlled chaos that is breathtaking to watch. The sound of the wind rushing past and the constant honking of horns add to the feeling of desperation. After surviving the traffic, John moves into a large, abandoned apartment building. This is where we get the famous top-down sequence, filmed in a single continuous shot from a bird's-eye view. This is easily one of the coolest action scenes ever put on film. We see John moving from room to room, using a shotgun loaded with dragon's breath rounds. Every time he fires, a massive burst of flame erupts from the barrel, lighting up the dark rooms with a brilliant orange glow. The sound of the incendiary rounds is a deep, booming roar, followed by the crackle of fire. From this perspective, the fight looks like a deadly tactical board game. We see the enemies flanking him, and we see John reacting with split-second timing. The spatial awareness required for this scene is incredible, and the way the camera glides over the walls gives us a perfect view of the carnage. The sound of the wooden floors creaking under John's boots and the shattering of furniture as he moves through the rooms makes the environment feel fragile and dangerous. But the real challenge is still ahead. To reach the church, John has to climb the 222 steps of Montmartre. At the top of these stairs are the Marquis' men, led by Chidi, and they have no intention of letting him pass. This sequence is a grueling test of endurance. John is exhausted, his suit is torn, and his movements are slowing down. He starts fighting his way up the stairs, step by weary step. Every time he makes progress, he is pushed back. There is a heartbreaking moment where he is kicked all the way down to the very bottom, tumbling and crashing against the stone steps. You can hear every impact, the dull thuds and the scraping of fabric against stone. It feels like he is never going to make it. But then, Caine appears. In a surprising twist, Caine helps John. Caine realizes that if John doesn't make it to the duel, they both lose. Caine wants his freedom and his daughter's safety, and the only way to get that is for the duel to happen. Together, the two old friends fight their way up the stairs in a display of incredible teamwork. The sound of their synchronized breathing and the rhythm of their strikes as they clear the path is a testament to their shared history as the world's best assassins. Finally, they reach the top just as the sun begins to rise over Paris. The light is golden and soft, casting long shadows across the square in front of the Sacré-Cœur. The duel is set. John and Caine are given antique pistols, and they are to stand 30 paces apart. They will fire one shot, then move 10 paces closer, and fire again, continuing until someone is dead. The silence of the morning is absolute, broken only by the chirping of a few birds and the heavy footsteps of the duelists. The Marquis watches from the sidelines, looking smug and confident. The first round is fired, a sharp, singular crack that echoes across the empty square. Both men are hit, but not killed. They move closer. The tension is unbearable. You can see the sweat on their brows and the focus in their eyes. The second round is fired. More blood, more pain, but they are both still standing. They move to the final distance, almost face to face.
This is the moment of truth. Caine fires his third shot, and John falls to the ground. The Marquis, thinking he has won and wanting the glory of the kill for himself, invokes the right of the challenger to take over for his representative. He takes the pistol from Caine and walks over to John, who is slumped over, bleeding. The Marquis aims at John's head, ready to end the legend of the Baba Yaga once and for all. But Winston, standing nearby, has a small, knowing smile on his face. He whispers to the Marquis that John didn't fire his last shot. The Marquis's eyes go wide with realization just as John raises his pistol. The sound of the final shot is the loudest thing in the world for that 1 second. The Marquis falls dead, and the game is over. John has won his freedom. Winston has his hotel back. Caine is free to go to his daughter. John sits on the steps of the church, looking out at the sunrise. He looks peaceful for the first time in years. He thinks about his wife, Helen, and the life they had. The sound of the wind is soft now, a gentle murmur as the city begins to wake up. John slowly closes his eyes, and the screen fades to black. We later see Winston and the King of the Bowery at a cemetery in New York.
standing over a headstone that simply says, "Loving husband." It is a quiet, somber ending to a journey that was anything but quiet. The legend of John Wick has finally come to an end. Or has it? The movie leaves us with a sense of closure, but also a lingering feeling that the world of the high table will never be the same. The action in this film is truly a cut above the rest, and it is not just because of the scale. It is the attention to detail. Every reload is shown, every tactical decision has weight, and every injury feels earned. John is not a superhero. He is a man of extreme focus and will, but he still gets tired and he still gets hurt. We see him struggling to breathe, we see him limping, and we see the toll that this lifestyle has taken on his body. The sound of his heavy, labored breathing in the quiet moments between fights is just as important as the sound of the explosions. It grounds the movie in a sense of physical reality that makes the over-the-top stunts feel even more impressive. The world building continues to be a highlight of the series. From the administrative offices where the high table operators work on old-fashioned switchboards and vacuum tubes, to the complex rules of the Continental, everything feels like it belongs to a hidden society that has existed for centuries. The use of different languages and cultures adds to the global feel of the movie. We go from the traditional honor of the Osaka Continental to the gritty industrial underworld of Berlin, and then to the grand artistic stage of Paris. Each location has its own unique sonic and visual identity. The clashing of swords in Japan feels different than the axe-swinging brutality of the Berlin nightclub or the high-speed chaos of the Paris streets.
One of the funniest and most relatable parts of the movie is the tracker and his dog. The dog is essentially a character in its own right, and the way it interacts with the action is both hilarious and terrifying. There is a scene where the dog is attacking a guard, and the guard tries to protect his sensitive areas, and the tracker just gives a little whistle, and the dog knows exactly what to do. The sound of the dog's enthusiastic barking and the panicked yelps of the guards provide some much-needed moments of levity in an otherwise very serious movie. It is also a nice callback to the first film, showing that even in this world of cold-blooded killers, the bond between a person and their dog is something sacred. The character of Caine is also a standout. Donnie Yen brings a level of charisma and physicality to the role that makes him a perfect foil for John. The way he uses his blindness as an advantage, using sound and touch to map out his surroundings, is incredibly cool. The sound of his motion sensors and the way he reacts to the slightest vibration makes every one of his scenes feel unique. You can hear the tiny mechanical clicks of his sensors and the light tap-tap-tap of his cane against the floor. It is a very tactile performance that adds a lot to the movie's overall sensory experience. His relationship with John is the emotional heart of the film, two men who respect each other deeply but are forced into a conflict by a system that doesn't care about their feelings. The Marquis de Gramont is the kind of villain you love to hate. He is the embodiment of the high table's arrogance and decadence. He doesn't do his own dirty work, preferring to sit in beautiful gardens or opulent rooms while others die for him. The way he talks, with a refined and condescending tone, makes every word feel like a slight. The sound of his silk suits rustling and the clink of his expensive watch are reminders of his wealth and power. He is the ultimate representative of a world that John is trying to leave behind, a world where life is cheap and power is everything. His death at the end is one of the most satisfying moments in the franchise, not just because John survives, but because the Marquis is outsmarted by the very rules he thought he controlled.
The cinematography in John Wick Chapter 4 is some of the best in the genre. Every shot is composed like a painting, with a use of color and light that is breathtaking. The neon pinks and blues of Osaka, the dark grays and greens of Berlin, and the golden hues of Paris create a visual journey that is as much a feast for the eyes as the action is for the soul. The way the camera moves, often in long, sweeping takes, allows us to appreciate the choreography and the scale of the sets. We are never lost in the action. We are always right there with John, feeling every hit and seeing every move. The top-down sequence in the apartment is the peak of this visual style, a creative and bold choice that pays off perfectly. The sound of the weapons is another area where the movie excels. Each gun has a distinct personality. The sharp, high-pitched crack of the handguns, the deep chest-thumping boom of the shotguns, and the rapid-fire staccato of the submachine guns all contribute to the symphony of the gunfights. When John uses the Dragon's Breath rounds, the sound is a heavy, rolling roar that feels like it has real weight behind it. You can hear the shells hitting the floor, a metallic tinkle that acts as a counterpoint to the loud explosions. The sound design is layered and complex, making the action feel three-dimensional and immersive. You don't just see the fight, you hear the environment reacting to it, the shattering glass, the splintering wood, and the whistling of bullets passing by. John's journey in this film is one of ultimate sacrifice and redemption. He has spent 4 movies running and fighting, and he is finally at the end of his rope. The exhaustion he feels is something the audience feels too. We have been on this ride with him since someone made the mistake of stealing his car and killing his puppy, and we want him to find peace just as much as he does. The final duel is the perfect conclusion, because it is not about who is faster or who is stronger. It is about who has the most will. John's decision to take the hits and wait for his moment is a testament to his tactical brilliance and his unwavering determination. He wins not by being a better killer, but by being a smarter one. The themes of friendship and loyalty are explored through the characters of Winston, Shimazu, and Caine. Even in a world where everyone is a professional assassin, there are still bonds that cannot be broken. Shimazu is willing to lose everything to protect John because of their shared history. Winston, despite his own ambitions, clearly cares for John and wants him to succeed. And Caine, even when he is trying to kill John, does so with a heavy heart and eventually helps him when it matters most. These relationships give the movie an emotional weight that balances out the intense action. We care about these people and their fates, which makes the stakes feel real.
The world of the High Table is a fascinating one, filled with its own mythology and traditions. The idea of the duel, the use of gold coins as currency, and the strict rules of the Continental all create a sense of a larger world that exists just beneath the surface of our own. It is a world where honor still means something, even if it is a twisted version of it. The Marquis' attempt to modernize and centralize power is seen as a violation of these ancient traditions, which is why even the other members of the table seem to be rooting for John in their own way. The sound of the ancient bells and the use of antique weapons in the final duel emphasize this connection to the past. The pacing of the movie is incredible. Despite being nearly 3 hours long, it never feels slow. It moves from one massive set piece to the next, with just enough character development and world building in between to keep us invested. Each action sequence is different from the last, ensuring that we never get bored. The car chase, the apartment fight, the nightclub brawl, and the stair climb all have their own unique rhythm and style. The movie builds and builds until the quiet, tense final duel, which provides a perfect emotional release after all the chaos. It is a masterclass in how to structure an action film. The dog in this movie deserves its own award. The choreography involved in the dogfights is amazing, with the animal moving in perfect sync with the human actors. The sound of the dog's paws hitting the pavement and its ferocious growls add a layer of primal energy to the scenes. It is not just a pet, it is a weapon and a companion. The tracker's relationship with the dog is one of the most endearing parts of the film, and it provides a nice parallel to John's own history. When John saves the dog during the Arc de Triomphe fight, it is a pivotal moment that changes the tracker's perspective on John, showing that some things are more important than money. The use of music in the film is also noteworthy. The score is a mix of driving electronic beats and orchestral arrangements that perfectly match the tone of the movie. During the action scenes, the music is loud and aggressive, pushing the energy forward. In the quieter moments, it is haneng and atmospheric, reflecting John's internal state. The use of a French version of Painted Black during the Paris sequence is a brilliant touch, adding a layer of style and coolness to the chaos. The sound of the music blending with the sounds of the city and the sounds of the combat creates a truly immersive experience.
As we reach the end of this recap, it is clear that John Wick Chapter 4 is more than just an action movie. It is a celebration of the genre, a showcase of incredible craftsmanship, and a fitting conclusion to the story of a legendary character. The dedication of everyone involved, from the stunt performers to the sound designers and the actors, is visible in every frame. It is a movie that demands to be seen and heard on the biggest and loudest system possible. John Wick's journey may be over, but his impact on the world of cinema will be felt for a long time to come. The sound of the gunshots may have faded, but the legend of the Baba Yaga lives on. I could spend hours talking about the technical aspects of the film, but what it really comes down to is the experience of watching it. The feeling of the bass in your chest during the nightclub scene, the way you hold your breath during the final duel, and the sheer awe at the creativity of the stunts. It is a movie that respects its audience, giving them something truly special and unique. It doesn't rely on cheap tricks or lazy writing. It earns every moment of its runtime. John Wick is a character who has become an icon, and this film is the perfect tribute to that legacy. The final image of the headstone is a reminder that in the end, John got what he always wanted, to be remembered as a man who loved his wife. The High Table itself is such a cool concept, a shadowy group that rules from the shadows with an iron fist.
The Marquis is a perfect representation of how power can corrupt and how someone can become so blinded by their own importance that they forget the very rules that gave them that power. His defeat is not just a victory for John, but a victory for the idea that even the most powerful organizations have weaknesses. The sound of the Marquis breathing as he realizes he has lost is the sound of an entire system starting to crack. Whether or not someone else will step up to fill the void is a question for another time, but for now, the world is a little bit quieter. The different fighting styles used in the movie are a treat for martial arts fans. From John's signature gunfu and judo to Caine's swordwork and the armored soldier's tactical movements, there is a variety of combat that keeps things fresh. The sound of the different weapons, the metallic cling of the swords, the thud of a well-placed kick, and the sound of someone being thrown through a glass window all contribute to the visceral nature of the fights. It is a movie that understands the physics of violence, making every hit feel like it has real impact. John is a master of using his environment. Whether it is a set of nunchucks, a car door, or a flight of stairs, he is always looking for an advantage.
The 22 steps of Montmartre sequence is perhaps the best metaphor for John's entire journey. It is a long, painful climb where he is constantly being knocked down, but he keeps getting back up. The sound of his body hitting the stone steps over and over again is a reminder of the physical toll his life has taken. But the fact that he reaches to top with a little help from a friend is a testament to the human spirit. It is an exhausting scene to watch, but it makes the final duel feel all the more earned. By the time he gets to the church, he is completely spent, having given everything he has to get there. The cinematography during the Arc de Triomphe scene is particularly impressive. The way the camera stays low to the ground, capturing the speed and danger of the traffic, makes you feel like you are right there in the middle of it. The screeching of the tires and the sound of the engines are constant, creating a sense of urgency and chaos. John dodging cars while shooting at assassins is a high-wire act of choreography that is truly breathtaking. It is a sequence that could have easily been a mess, but the clear direction and editing make it a standout moment in a movie filled with standout moments. The apartment fight with the dragon's breath rounds is another highlight. The top-down perspective is so innovative and cool, giving us a completely different view of the action. The way the fire from the shotgun blasts illuminates the rooms and the way John moves from cover to cover is like watching a master at work. The sound of the flames and the booming of the shotgun create a powerful auditory experience. It is a scene that shows the filmmakers are not afraid to take risks and try something new, and it pays off in a big way. It is one of those scenes that you want to rewatch as soon as it is over, just to catch all the details. The world of John Wick is a world of consequences. Every action John takes has a reaction, and he is constantly paying the price for his choices. The death of Charon, the destruction of the New York Continental, and the loss of Shimazu are all heavy prices to pay. But John is also a man who brings out the best and worst in those around him. He inspires loyalty in people like Winston and Shimazu, but he also brings out the greed and ambition in people like the Marquis. The movie does a great job of exploring these different facets of his character, showing that he is more than just a killing machine. He is a man who is deeply connected to the people around him, even if that connection is often defined by violence. The ending of the movie is both sad and beautiful. John sitting on the steps watching the sunrise is a moment of pure peace. He has finally finished what he started, and he has done it on his own terms. The sound of the city waking up is a sign that life goes on, but for John, the struggle is finally over. Whether he actually died or just went into hiding is left somewhat ambiguous, but the emotional impact is the same. He has earned his rest. The legend of the Baba Yaga is complete, and he has left a mark on the world that will never be erased. In the end, John Wick Chapter 4 is a testament to the power of pure, unadulterated action cinema. It is a movie that knows exactly what it wants to be and executes it with perfection. It is loud, it is violent, it is stylish, and it is incredibly entertaining. The sound of the punches, the explosions, and the dialogue all work together to create a cohesive and thrilling experience. It is a fitting end to one of the best action franchises of all time, and a reminder of why we love movies in the first place. John Wick may be a man of few words, but his actions speak louder than anything else could. The legacy of these films is also about the revitalization of the action genre itself. Before John Wick, many action movies relied on shaky cam and quick cuts to hide the lack of choreography. But the Wick series brought back long takes, clear action, and incredible stunt work. It showed that audiences want to see the work that goes into a fight scene, and that they appreciate the artistry of a well-choreographed sequence. Chapter 4 takes this to its logical conclusion, with some of the most complex and impressive action ever filmed. The sound of the movement, the rustle of the suits, and the rhythmic nature of the gunfights have become the new standard for the genre.
The character of Akira is also someone I hope we see more of. Her grief and anger at the end of the movie suggest that she might be on a similar path to the one John was on. The post-credit scene, where she approaches Caine with a knife, is a chilling reminder that the cycle of violence never truly ends. The sound of her footsteps and the glint of her blade are a promise of more stories to come in this world. It is a dark but fitting note to end on, showing that while John's story may be over, the world of the High Table and its consequences will continue to affect the lives of everyone it touches.
Reflecting on the entire journey, John Wick's path was one of relentless determination against impossible odds. It was a story about the weight of the past and the desperate struggle for a future that seemed forever out of reach. In the end, his victory wasn't just in surviving the countless battles or defeating the High Table's latest champion. It was in reclaiming his own identity and finding a moment of genuine stillness. John showed us that while we cannot always escape the consequences of our choices, we can choose how we face them. His sacrifice serves as a powerful reminder of the strength found in loyalty and the enduring hope that even in the darkest world, peace is something worth fighting for until the very last breath. John Wick Chapter 4 is a rare cinematic achievement that manages to be both a massive spectacle and a deeply personal conclusion to a character's arc. It sets a new high bar for action filmmaking, blending incredible stunts with a rich, stylish world. The film is a reminder of the power of visual storytelling and the impact of a dedicated team working at the top of their game. It leaves us wondering if the peace John found is truly final, or if the world of assassins will eventually come calling again. But for now, it remains a perfect closing chapter. What was your favorite fight scene in the movie, and do you think John is actually gone for good?